Well, is there any definitive research that tells us how to teach reading?
Oh.
I mean, because there's so many options out there, especially in the homeschooling realm, just so many options and directions to go. I mean, how do you know?
That's very difficult for parents, and quite frankly, parents are not well-versed educational consumers. They really don't know when they go to buy something whether or not this product is a good product or one that's not going to do them.
Yeah, we have found that to be a challenge ourselves. Sure.
I guess what we need to do is to go back, and I tell this to all parents, when you go to look at a program, ask the vendor about the research behind the program. And I'm not talking about the market research. I'm talking about the scientific research.
I got you.
And when people do that, they're going to find that there is one huge study out there called the follow-through study that compared 16 different methods with hundreds of thousands of children over 20 years.
Ah, wow.
And they did reports with third-party evaluators every year and summarized them every third year and reported that back to the Department of Education federally in your country. They spent $2.2 billion to find out what is the best way to teach children, especially those who are at risk of failure. And two methods came out very clearly. One of them is called direct instruction, and it's from the University of Oregon. The founders are Siegfried Engelmann, Wes Becker, and Doug Carnine, and a group of people there. That method overpowered everything else in the field.
Wow.
And we've been using it to teach children now for about 30 years.
My goodness. Yeah, what was the second one, or do you have that on the top of your head?
Yes, the second one came from the University of Kansas, and it was called behavior analysis. And that's
okay.
where they rewarded the children with praise and points for doing better.
I see.
But it was a distant second to the direct instruction.
How about that? So why do some children find learning to read to be so difficult? We've experienced that. We have 8 children.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen a variety of that, especially in a couple of our children who have struggled with that a little more than some of the other children, we'll say, you know. Why is that? Why is there such a difference sometimes?
Well, to start with, about 2/3 of all children will learn irrespective of the method you use.
Okay.
So we're really talking about the 1/3 of children who will have difficulty unless you teach them well.
Sure.
That means you need your absolute best tools, and you need to know how to use those tools incredibly well. And even then, these children may require hundreds, if not thousands, of repetitions in order to learn the discrimination between, for example, b and d.
Right.
But what you do, and this is what direct instruction does, it very carefully lays out the curriculum so that d is taught very early on as a sound, and b is not introduced until many lessons later.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
So the design of direct instruction is what gives it its power.
Okay.
So the child learns d, and then 15 lessons later, they learn b, and by the time they get to b, they've seen d so many times that it's not a confusion.
Right. That makes so much sense. I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner. Well, you could see laying that out at the same time, basically, and trying to teach them side by side, how confusing that would be.
Yes, because the problem with those two letters is, first of all, they look very much alike.
Right.
And secondly, they sound very much alike.
Right.
And they also have two others that are very much similar to that, like P and Q, the P
Right.
and the Q. I mean, essentially, the only way you can tell those letters apart is their orientation in space.
Right.
And you never use orientation in space as a way to differentiate anything. Our world teaches us that it's constant in terms of orientation.
Yeah, good point.
And so children have difficulty with that, and we're surprised.
Well, if my child is having problems reading, where do I start?
My first step would be to check their phonics to see whether or not, do they know the sounds that those letters make.
Right.
Basically, when you start to teach a child to read, you've got two major tasks. The first task is to hook together that sound with that particular symbol.
Right.
And so when you put that symbol in front of the child, They have to learn to associate a particular sound that goes with that symbol. So the first thing we need to do is break out all the potential sounds and sound combinations that exist in the English language. Turns out there are about 46 of them. And then what we're going to do is systematically organize those so the ones that look alike and sound alike are not taught together.
Uh-huh.
And then we will only introduce new sounds in words after we've taught them as sounds. So the child never sees something they're not used to.
Sure.
And so once we've done that, now we can start the second major task, which is teaching them how to hook those sounds together to get a word. And that's called blending.
Okay.
And the biggest problem children have with blending is either A, they don't know the sound or sound combinations, or B, they don't sound them out without stopping between the sounds.
Right.
And so they sound the word out, and then when they go to say it, they speed up the sounds and the spaces, and it all comes out as gobbledygook.
Yes, sir.